Hello, namaste everyone. Hope all of you are doing good. Welcome to the first lecture of new lecture series on the subject strength of materials. So before jumping into the concepts of any subject, as learners, we must try to understand the application of a particular concept or a subject in the real world. How is it useful for us? So coming to this strength of materials, let us see with two examples how this particular subject is very useful in our lives. And as a part of engineers, we must study this subject if you are a civil or a mechanical engineer in specific. So let's get to the examples. Before that, let me minimize myself here so that you can see my presentation. So why strength of materials? Here you can see two images. One is a civil structure, other is a mobile object, a bicycle. So in the civil structure is the bridge, which is used for transportation of vehicles from one side of a river bank to the other side, or one side of a cliff to the other cliff. So for these purposes we generally construct bridges. And now in this the purpose we have understood why we use it. So now on this bridge, for this bridge, it can be used for rail transport or road transport. Again, say for example, let us assume for this example as a road transport. Again, when I say road transport, there are different kinds of vehicles that are going to use this bridge. So there can be cars, there can be commercial vehicles such as trucks, Tata Ace, like small vehicles, small commercial vehicles, which we call it as a light commercial vehicles. There also can be heavy commercial vehicles like lorries. There can be heavy passenger vehicles like buses, and lot many. Even again in cars we have sedans, we have hatchbacks, we have SUVs, MUVs, all those different kinds of. So when I say different entities and that are moving with different velocities each, again we don't find all the cars or all the vehicles on the bridge moving with the same speed. They move with different speeds. So the moving objects force vibrations into this particular bridge. So how that happens, that is a kind of a load. Again each vehicle has its own weight. Again, that is one more load. So there are different kinds of mix of loads that act on the deck of this bridge. This part, this horizontal part, we call it as a deck, on which we lay rail or roads. So the main thing which is used for movement or transportation is called deck. So this has to be held in position. It has to withstand the loads that it is being subjected to. Again, this deck is being supported in its position using some components, some assemblies, some structures. Again, this vertical one, we call it as a tower. I am simplifying the things. There are complex terms as well. I am simplifying the things with simple examples. So these things we call it as a main cables, and these vertical cables we call it as a suspender cables. So these suspender cables take the loads, because cables are tensile members. All these things we will study in the course. So these terms, to understand these terms, this subject is very necessary. So these and this tower together, all these things together hold the deck in its position, and they facilitate us to move from one side to the other side. So try to imagine what kind of design we should have so that the bridge will be able to sustain these many loads, these different kinds of loads, not just the capacity wise but type wise. We have vibrational loads due to the movement of the vehicles. We have such normal dead loads due to the weight of the structure itself. There are some other low types of loads as well, the loads of the cars or vehicles that are moving on, their weights. So different kinds of, that is a mix of different kinds of loads together acting on the bridge. So it has to sustain. So a design has to be a proper one, because otherwise it will fail and leads to catastrophe. Many lives will be at stake. So how careful a designer should be while designing such things. So it is a very big example. So when we break it down to simpler ones, we come down to component level. We have to design this cable separately. Once we understand what kind of loads are going to act on this cable, we have to design this cable separately. What should be its diameter, what should be its length, at what angle we should tie this to the tower, etc. So such design things start from the basic elements. That basic is given to us by strength of materials. Once we understand this subject, then we can move to the higher levels and design such complex structures. So the starting point for this design concept is strength of materials. When we are trying to design something on strength or stiffness base, that means how much it can elongate or deviate, or how much load it should withstand. On when we are trying to design something on these perspectives, strength of materials is the starting point. Without understanding the concept of strength of materials, you cannot go anywhere in civil engineering. Similar is the case of a mechanical engineer. I will take a very simple example of bicycle. Here the readily viewable or identifiable components are the seat, handlebar, this frame, this chain and sprocket mechanism attached to this crank and pedal, this front wheel and rear wheel. Again, in this, again components are there. This is chain, this is crank, this is pedal. So this is crank wheel, we can call it. Here we can call it as a cassette. Here we can call it as a deannular. So there are different here brakes, and again the components are there. Derailleur. So again there are different concepts here involved. So we are not going into depth of that. Just we have to see a basic thing to understand the importance of strength of materials. So this purpose of this cycle is a rider will ride this bicycle from one place to the other. So he will sit on this seat. This purpose of the seat is to withstand load of a particular person. Purpose of this pedal is when the rider exerts force using his leg onto this pedal and tries to rotate it in his clockwise direction using this chain and sprocket mechanism. Here this assembly will try to rotate the wheel forward in clockwise direction. In this way, this bicycle will move forward. Now, to all that to happen, we have understood the purpose fine, but we have to understand that this total thing has to happen by taking the load on it. A person will sit on it, so there will be load on the seat, and that will be transferred to the frame, that will be transferred to the axles of this wheel or here assembly, on which bearings are mounted. Again on the bearings, these wheels are mounted. So it is a complex assembly again, but you understand to sustain. So this whole thing should sustain load of some person. So when you go on component level, the seat should be able to withstand the weight of that person. Again, this frame, there it will be distributed, of course. The magnitude may change, but somehow different joints will have to withstand certain kind of force or load. Here force and load are a little bit different. We will study those things in the course. So it has to sustain load, withstand load, sustain load during its functionality. When someone is using it, sitting on it and riding it, it should be intact and it should move in a proper way. So for that to happen, again design has to be proper. Again, when I say design, strength of materials is the basic thing. Someone has to know how much should be the strength of these spokes that are used in this rim of the wheel. Someone should be in a position to assess what should be the strength of shear load or shear strength of these axles used here. So different components, every component has its material limits, maximum stresses that it can withstand. So again, we will study in the course what are stresses, what is maximum stress, what is ultimate stress, etc. So to study all these things, understand these things, understand the design concept as a whole and design marvelous things in our lives and make our lives easier, the primemost and the first step we have to take is understand the concepts of strength of materials. So this is why strength of materials concept is so important. So I will be releasing the videos shortly, one by one. So please stick with me and let's learn strength of materials happily. Hope you will enjoy the course. Thank you.